morning, sweetie.
Good morning, honey.
Clink the coffee cups.
Yep.
Got the coffee going, slurping the coffee. Got a fire going on the stove.
It's cold outside.
It's cold and drippy out there. We need the rain. We keep telling ourselves that. It is spring in far northern California, and we're going to get lots of rain. It's supposed to be raining till the end of the week.
That's great.
Yep.
Except I have a ton of yard work to do because with the rain comes a lot of things that grow.
Yeah, sprouting out of the ground. I did get the lawn mowed yesterday. Mm-hmm. Got that knocked down. Mm-hmm. Looks a whole lot better than it did.
Yeah.
It evens things out. I did a little bit of slipping and sliding and just on the back of the house where it's usually damp.
Yeah, on the lawnmower.
On the lawnmower, trying to go uphill and zzz, it wasn't really going in a straight line, but so I figured I started mowing downhill, and that worked a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess actually, I'll tell myself I got the lawnmower stuck in the ditch again. I was trying to mow because the grass in the ditch behind our house. We try to have it well maintained, along with the poison oak and everything else. There's a lot of leaves, so it does accumulate a little bit of mud and sediments in the bottom of the ditch. I was trying to drive down there to get the tall Johnson grass, try to get it knocked down so it wouldn't be 10 feet tall the next time we were able to mow. So I was down in the lower end of the ditch right by the culvert and got it stuck.
How'd you get it out?
Well, first time I wrestled it around so the lawnmower was facing uphill, facing the parallel with the ditch.
Right.
This is audio only, so you can't see my hand gestures. I'm pointing. The front of the lawnmower is pointing a little bit upstream in the ditch, and I got it going that way for about 3 feet, and then it bogged down again. And then it wanted to point its nose end uphill away from the ditch.
Right.
So I had to go get the tractor and pull it out.
We're on 2.5 acres. We have our own little ranch here that we tend to take care of pretty well and have issues all the time. And
it was fun. I didn't get mad. I did not get upset. I practiced my equanimity, practiced my inner peace.
Your inner peace, your calm.
Yeah, I didn't get upset. It's my own fault. I drove it down the ditch and it was muddy. It's spring. It's just the tail end of winter.
Yeah.
But I kind of chuckled and laughed a little bit. Yeah, I got the lawnmower stuck. But we're blessed that we have a tractor that we can use for hauling brush and loading wood and moving wood around and all the necessary chores to maintain defensible space around the property and maintain the property.
Right.
We're blessed to have a nice Kubota tractor and the Kubota zero-turn radius lawnmower to make the quick work of the lawn.
Yeah.
And the outlying areas. So.
And I was out of town.
Yeah, you were out of town. You were in Sack of Tomatoes.
In Sacramento. Doing some professional development, leadership, and hanging around people that are really good people. That's my favorite group to go hang with, unless I'm with the PITC, which is Programs for Infant Toddler Caregivers. They're also my people. They're just really respectful and kind and good people, just good, wholesome, good-hearted people. And I also love going to these conferences or these workshops that are focused on, and we all have the vision of really making a difference with children and families, and that's my work. That's what I do professionally. And I can never get enough of training. I had one of the gals at the training. I saw her last year when we went to the training. She was in her second year, I think, as being a mentor coordinator, and I'm the mentor coordinator for our program. And we just click, and we have similar teaching styles. She's very much an innovator, a spark, a shining star where she is. You can feel her radiate how she wants to instill in her students to really make a difference out there working with children. And there's something really beautiful. That is how I feel. This is how we change make change in the world is by growing our children up in a safe environment that thrives on curiosity and engagement and interactions that are healthy. And I just feel like every time I come back from these conferences or these gatherings of people that have that like-mindedness, that it sparks a fire for me to continue doing this work. That's how we're going to change the world. I've been saying that forever. And when I teach, I always tell my students, I say, now you've been given the gift. It's your job now to go out there and make change and make impact and love children and be there because you want to be there, not because you're there for a paycheck. This is not a go get a paycheck. If you just want a paycheck, go to Starbucks, go flip burgers at Burger King. I actually did that. My first management job was at Burger King, So, but if you want to just a job to get a paycheck, early childhood, working in schools as teachers is not that job. You don't get paid enough money to have that as your paycheck job. You can work anywhere to just get a paycheck. But if you want to make impact and you want to make a difference and you want to change the world and how we see it, you do that by teaching children.
So you feel recharged after this trip?
Well, I feel like everything I do is not wasted time. Sometimes we get busy work in our work. We got to go to this meeting and we got to go to that meeting, and it's I got to teach a class. Remember, I'm a teacher, because we wear so many hats as teachers. It's not just in the classroom. It's also building relationships in the community. It's building relationships with families and really making impact. And so one of the questions they asked me while I was there was, what do you really love about being a mentor coordinator? And I said, because I make impact on so many different layers in this work. I make impact with mentor teachers. I make impact with students and with the community and with my colleagues. And I feel like I'm making a difference, and it makes it very, very rewarding when I can do a project or do a training and leave there and go, wow, I could really see people nodding their heads yes, or the light bulb going off when I've made a connection for somebody to go, aha, I can use this. I can use this information,
You did this earlier last week too. What did you go to a high school?
Yeah, I actually visited. I have a high school class that we call it dual enrollment at the community college. So we have many high school programs, and not just early childhood, but welding and horticulture and all these different career technical education for high school students. It's like a thing right now. It's like a very hot topic around getting our students employable by the time they leave high school, so that they can get into an entry-level job and finish their degree and do like an earn and learn, where they can earn money but also learn at the same time.
Either college or the trades.
Yep. And so I kind of think of it as, back in the day, it was like, oh, college isn't for everybody. And it's not. College is not for everybody. The trade school can be for others. And that I kind of see community colleges really go into that trade school aspect, where we want you to be able to earn and learn while you get your education. And there's many different things coming down from the state on how we need to make it accessible to all individuals. So, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds of that, but I really feel like working in early childhood and working and growing our teachers and growing this this profession, if you will, that it has huge reward for me as a teacher and also as a human being, wanting to leave a mark on on our world. So when I leave, when my time comes, because we all have to remember that one day we will die, right?
Yeah. Memento mori.
That's right. I'm living right now. And
Memento vivere.
that's right. And so I'm making choices each and every day in my living world to make an impact on this work with children, and that we have good people with children and good people in the world. And my hope is to leave it a better place for my grandchildren, for my great-grandchildren, and my great-great-grandchildren, that I hope the impact I make trickles down to them and that they can feel it.
To move the needle on humanity.
That's right. So, and that comes with who you're married to and who you're with. And, I didn't make very good choices early on in my relationship. I want to say that when you and I, 20 years ago, when you and I started connecting, and we've shared our story a little bit, how we met online in Yahoo Personals, but we shared together not a to-do list, but these are my personal value lists. This is my list, and each of us had that list because we come with baggage. We came together with experiences and past relationships that we learned from.
I rather baggage has kind of a negative connotation. I would say what you just said was we have experience.
What I like to think is baggage as let's unpack it. We had to unpack that together so that we could pack up that suitcase that fits both of us. And we had to re-baggage the suitcase. And I think there's something beautiful in that. Every single person on this earth, even everybody that showed up at this conference this last week, came to the table with their backpack, right? If you will. It doesn't have to be baggage, but they came with a backpack, with experiences, with expectations, with
personal biases.
With their own personal biases. So we have to oftentimes unpack it together to see if we're a good match.
To see what's in the baggage.
Right, right.
Yeah, I think that is probably a better point than what I was trying to make.
Right.
Some people say, well, I've got so much baggage. Well,
you're supposed to.
Let's see what's in the baggage.
Let's unpack it together. We're supposed to. If we don't have baggage, that means you've been a little bean in a cabinet somewhere in the corner in the dark, not doing anything in your entire life. That's the only thing that doesn't have baggage.
Well, that's its own set of baggage.
Well, there's that. But my point is that when we came together, we had a list, and in my little bit of research that I do around this idea of what if you're a new couple out there, first of all, thank you for hitting play today. We're excited that you're here. We want you to share this out because there's new couples that need this information, and what we're going to talk about today is something very viable, something that new couples need to have some conversation before they embark upon a lifetime, so that it is something that they've had the conversation, even if it's not perfect when you get into the marriage and you go back to that conversation, you go, remember, we talked about how we're going to raise our kids. We've talked about our career and education goals. We've talked about, all these things, but now you're changing your mind because people change.
Well, even people who've been married for a while or in a relationship for a while, even if you're not married, we tend to say married, but if you've been in a relationship for a while, these might be things that you need to readdress, especially if there's friction.
Right. So we suggest some topics that probably is a good idea to talk about. And the top one for me, of course, is going to be parenting styles. How are you with how you discipline children? How are you with routines and the expectation of who does what. Our daughter just had twins with her husband, and it was a beautiful thing. I just want to say this. We all get into parenting. Nobody gives us a parenting book. We raise our children the way we're raised. We raise our children the best we know how, hoping that we, somehow are doing it right. I always say the parent that's doing it right is always questioning if they're doing it right, because that means their mind is open to other opportunities to learn how to do it better.
Right. It's a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset.
That's right. So parenting styles would be one of those conversations that would be important to have. Do you want to have children? I remember this particular daughter that has twins right now was dead set about not having children. Do you remember?
Yep.
And
stinky babies.
Yeah, she didn't want to have children. Well, she didn't want to bring children into a broken world, but that's been going on since the beginning of time.
Yeah, since there were human beings on this planet.
We're all broken, but anyway.
It's never going to be perfect.
Never. So when she, announced that she was pregnant, of course, I was delighted and excited and all those things. But, they have the twins, and it's hard. It's hard having one baby. But the other day I was over there, and they said, hey, this has been really hard, but we discovered that if we have Wes was in the living room and Carly was in the bedroom, and they kind of split the babies up for the evening, and Wes got up with Wyatt and changed his diaper and fed him and all the stuff with just Wyatt. Carly did it with just Bodhi, and then but she was able to breastfeed and sleep and change Bodhi, and they both were able to get sleep. And then the following night they swapped, and so that way Wyatt could get breastfed a whole evening and with mommy, because they're figuring it out. However it's going to work is what they're going to do, what works. And they're like, we slept so much better that way. In the beginning, they were trying to keep the babies together, and one would fall asleep and the other would wake up, and both parents would get up, and it's exhausting. And they just figured out a thing. So were they able to have this conversation, 15 years ago before they had children? No, this is something, again, you could have the conversation beforehand, but you may want to revisit it. That's my whole point.
Right, especially as new details emerge.
Yeah.
New circumstances emerge.
That's
now
right.
We've got two babies. We got to figure out, this is exhausting.
Yeah.
We have to figure out how to make it a little bit less exhausting.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they're doing just that.
Right. So parenting styles would be something really important to talk about in the beginning of a relationship. Religion would be really important. What your take on credit and debt. What's your take on using credit cards or accumulating debt? And we didn't talk about that a lot when we first got together. We stumbled upon it, and you were, and I put together our tools that we had that each of us have learned, and put together a real nice financial budget, and we have a great relationship when it comes to our finances. In fact, we just had our first of the month meeting around our April finances, and I always feel really good about that, because I know what I'm going into for the month of April, and I know also some opportunities and maybe some challenges that might spark. But it makes me aware of okay, I need to either, run this a little tighter this month, or, hey, I've got a little extra cash. I'm going to go get some new shoes, or whatever it may be,
When you first said credit and debt, I thought you were talking about moral credit and debt, because you had skipped directly from religion. And
I'm just going for our list.
I know, but in religion, there is such a thing as moral credit and moral debt, about how you live your life. I don't want to go too much down a rabbit hole. I'm not a terribly religious person. Religion is when you follow the crowd. Faith is when you follow your heart. That's my definition. So I've never really followed a religious crowd. I went to church when I was younger, in my teens. I've been saved, been baptized. But one thing that religion does teach you is, irrespective of what religion it is, they talk about morality and moral credit and moral debt. Not necessarily in those terms, but the good things that you do for yourself and for those around you when you don't expect anything in return, that is good moral credit. That you're building up credit in this spiritual bank account. So when you cash in your chips, you'll have a little bit of leverage. So wherever you think your soul goes, or maybe you don't think you have a soul, maybe you think you're just composed of atoms that will be intermingled with other atoms when you kick the bucket. Then there's the moral debt, when you do things that are either don't help people or actually hurt people, those around you or those you've never met or will never meet by your actions. I think there is such a thing as a moral and spiritual debt. Buddhists talk about this a lot, and that they want to accumulate moral credit or spiritual credit for their next life, because they believe in reincarnation, and you can actually build up a spiritual credit through suffering, through things that you've gone through and not complained about. Because some people mistake Buddhism is all about suffering, that you have to suffer to be good. That's not necessarily true. It's when you do go through suffering and you do go through really, really hard stuff, how you deal with it. And you don't take the pain of that suffering out on yourself or on other people, and you just absorb it and take it for what it is and not try to change it. And you deal with it well. That is a something good in your spiritual bank account. Mm-hmm. Again, I think I just went down a rabbit hole.
No, it's okay.
I think that's one of the things I've been thinking about, and just one of the things I just wanted to get out of my face.
Well, and I think having those conversations, you and I had talked about religion, that we both agreed that faith was the pathway we wanted to follow in our hearts. We've prayed together. We pray at Sunday dinners. We do prayer for not things, but for peace and calm and guidance on making good decisions, being good stewards of what we're given in our gifts. And that isn't always monetary gifts. It's gifts also of, situations, or gifts of family, and gifts, I feel like, we're given gifts all the time that have nothing to do with money.
You just have to recognize it.
You have to recognize it. And sometimes you don't even see it until later. Hindsight is everything. And I think we had deep conversations around where the church kind of let us down at times. And that's why we had a faith mindset and not we got to go to church every Sunday mindset. Hence, that's why we're here for Sunday Morning Table, because we feel like this is where we talk about our faith. This is where we talk about, all these things in relationships. And we make decisions together as a couple. And we get on the same page as a couple. Those couples that may be struggling, if you're not communicating and you're not having those conversations, it doesn't have to be a Sunday morning. It could be, take time each and every morning and build upon your list of what you need to talk about to get on the same page.
And how you talk to yourself as well. And
how you talk to yourself and how you talk to your partner. There should not, and you have to agree with one another. Doesn't matter how mad you get. There's no yelling and there's no name calling. I think that's, and if we play around for example, we talked about flirting a while back. In your playtime together, if you do a lot of name calling or making fun of, then when you get angry, then you still feel like it's okay to name call and do those things. So even in your play, you have to be careful.
And we don't do that.
No.
We don't call each other derogatory names even in play, even in jest.
Not even playing around.
No.
I feel like we kind of set that tone in the beginning. So we've talked about religion. We talked about values. We talked about a lot around childhood trauma. I came to the relationship with a plethora of trauma. You came with your trauma. We talked about it. We talked about different things that we've done to heal and find resilience in that trauma. But I think it's important as brand new partners that you talk about what you're bringing. That's where you're unpacking the baggage. You're unpacking, this is what's happened. This is what I've done to heal so that I can be in this relationship. I think that's a big one. And that might be where we go today. I don't know. I have a couple more that I want to talk about. Sexual expectations, partner expectations, financial expectations. We talking about family history and mental health history is super important for new couples. Talk about your bucket list. What do you want out of life? What do you want to do? What's your dream home look like? I feel like when we found this house over 11 years this year, it was our dream home. We both felt it. We walked in. We knew right away we wanted this home. And we're still doing projects here. And it wasn't perfect by no means, but we loved it. You know,
we saw that it had enough potential that we were willing to invest our lives and our money into it.
Yeah. To
make it a better place. And then all these investments would make a difference. And they have.
They have.
By a long shot. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I don't know if we've ever talked about this story. We had been looking for places for quite a while. And we were running our realtor ragged. She was new. Our realtor was new. And she was under the impression that, like what you see on TV, you see 3 houses and you pick one.
That's not the case.
All the real estate shows, all these vacation homes and looking for a house and house hunters and everything, they look at 3 houses and they pick one. And ta-da! Then you're done looking at houses.
That's not reality.
We looked at 30 houses?
Oh, at least.
At least 30 houses.
Yeah.
And we said, nah.
We were picky. We had a list.
And she was getting frustrated with us. And this house you found...
Yeah,
we were sitting down eating dinner.
Pork chops.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I was eating a pork chop.
I about knocked it out of your mouth and said, "We got to go look at this house."
Yeah.
They posted it, and within an hour of it being posted, we took our plates of dinner and set it down to come out and look at this house. We drove in the neighborhood. We fell in love with the neighborhood, and then we went and parked down by the mailboxes and just rolled down the windows and shut off the engine and listened.
Yep.
We wanted somewhere that was quiet. We wanted somewhere that felt like country. And it does. We're right off the beaten path. It feels like we're in the middle of nowhere sometimes.
Yeah, but we're 4 miles from the nearest store,
Rayleigh's. Yeah.
And at 4 miles from your work at that time, Shasta Head Start.
Yeah.
So it was good.
And I'm still 6 miles from my current job. So I think talking about your dream home, talking about your career and educational goals, talking about political views, and anything else that comes up. So those are just some topic ideas around, as a new couple and ongoing, like the political climate right now. We talk about that a little bit still, and we will always talk about that. I think all of these topics are something that we always find, and that's why we wanted to create Sunday Morning Table, is because we feel like if we can help other couples find success in their marriage, that people would stay married longer. You don't hear people staying married very long. I feel so fortunate. I'm going to be quite honest. When we got married, I thought, I wonder how long he's going to stay with me. I wonder how long he's going to tolerate me as an individual and be with me, because I felt very broken at the time. And I really leaned into my religion. I did a lot of prayer. I did a lot of asking for guidance as a wife. How can I be a good wife? What makes a good wife? I would ask others who I met that were married for a long time, how do you do it? How do you stay married? And some of them would say some very positive things, and others would say very negative things, that they've been in a marriage that they hated for 30, 40 years, that they're unhappy. And I didn't want that. I wanted to grow in our marriage and be happy and find that sense of peace and calm where people wanted to come and be with us and be around us. And I feel like we've built that. And that's why we created this podcast, was because we wanted to share how we've created that. And it comes with, talking and communicating and all the different relationships. But I want to go back for a minute, because I really think what oftentimes pulls couples apart is the communication around finances. And
well, I think lack of communication
yeah,
around any of these subjects that we've been discussing, when you don't talk about it, that's when the friction really happens, is when you're not on the same page, or even in the same book. Go ahead.
No, that's good.
Well, yeah, because when you bring your own, we were talking about this before we started recording, about your baggage. When you have your baggage, you have to unpack it to see what all is in there. And part of that is the experiences that you have from previous relationships, or even if you've never been in a relationship with somebody outside of your family. How is the relationship inside your family? How well do you get along with your siblings, if you have any? How well did you get along with your parents? What was their parenting style? I think these are all things that you really need to talk about and discuss. And even if you're not on the same page, at least you brought it out and into the light. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. You brought it out into the light, and that way, when somebody behaves, the person that you're with, if they behave in a way that is different from yours, you're not terribly surprised. That you have an idea where they're coming from. I think it is also good to maybe read some books on psychology, read some books on Stoicism. Stoicism is about tools for emotional resilience, growth, positivity, and some inner peace. And I think I could give you a whole list of books to read, but just look up your own subject on evolutionary biology, psychology, how to figure out how somebody's going to act, and then that way you're not terribly surprised when they do act in that behavior, in that manner.
That's why it's really important that you talk about the trauma that you've gone through. And I shared with you, and I don't recall if I shared with you the details around the trauma that I've had. I had experiences that involved boys or men that were stepped over the boundary of I don't even know how to say it except to just say I was molested twice, and both times, one was a neighbor that lived on our street, and another was a close friend's sibling. So when you are married and you have been molested and you haven't worked through that trauma, understand that trauma does not define you. It does not it can cause your healthy sexual relationship issues if you don't address those things. And one thing you have to remember is the person that you're married to is not the person that molested you. And when you've had that trauma before, you oftentimes, if you've been raped or molested or those things, that sexual expectations of talking about it before you're in the bedroom is important. Super important. And that is a heavy topic, but it's something that if, as a woman or a man, if you had someone take advantage of you, being able to share that with a future husband or wife to say, this is what happened, this is the counseling that I got, I was able to talk through that. Oftentimes people that have had trauma that that has not been addressed, it shows up in your marriage. It shows up in your relationships with others. So counseling is super important. Being able to share your trauma it's like you almost need to look at your trauma and say, okay, this is what happened. This is why I might be reacting that way, but that is not the person that caused the trauma to me. So I'm going to use some mindset work to stop that thinking and put it aside and build this new relationship that will involve being intimate with someone in a healthy way, or being in a relationship with someone in a healthy way, that they are not the person that caused that trauma to you. You almost have to pack that up and set it aside. I went through 2 years of counseling and talking to somebody about what I've been through, and then I was in a support group for a few more years after that, where I could have those conversations openly in the support group. But even with all that work, there's people that go for years, talking to a psychologist and working through the trauma. It's healthy to do that. It's healthy to have those conversations, but you don't let it define you. You don't let it take precedence in your current relationship, because it can ruin things. Your history, your trauma from when you were growing up, you don't use it as a crutch and say, this is why I am the way I am. This is why I do what I do, because of all this stuff that happened to me. You don't get to do that.
You don't get to use it as an excuse.
Right. You get to look at it and say, this is why I might be feeling this way, and I'm going to work through those feelings of how it has affected me. If I see myself freeze, or if I see myself want to flight, or if I see myself go into a fight mode, I know that my body is reacting in a way that is trauma. I'm not feeling safe. But if I'm using it as we can't do that because this is what's happened to me in the past, that doesn't work. But if I can recognize what those trauma sensors are, fight, flight, or freeze,
or fawn,
if I can recognize that I am frozen in this moment of intimacy with my husband, who has never hurt me, who has never been cruel to me and never done bad things to me, but yet I'm frozen, I'm like, okay, let's pause a minute. For some reason, I'm feeling this way, and I just need a minute to kind of breathe, and I just need a minute. And being able to say this with a husband that you care for deeply, that has never hurt you, is important. And then now, if I've shared that trauma with my husband, that he knows, he's like, okay, this is what's happening. Has nothing to do with me. Has nothing to do with what I'm doing. It has to do with just an experience for a moment. And then when we're not in that intimate space, we have conversations about it. We talk about those things, and we have to be able to talk about it. Otherwise, you feel really isolated. You feel really alone. And there's been times in my life in our marriage where I have felt really alone because I was fearful. I didn't want to talk about it because I felt like, oh my gosh, have I not gotten through this yet? That was, 50 years ago.
You were thinking that I was going to judge you.
Right.
That's another reason people don't talk about stuff that happened to them, because they think it's their fault. And if I tell my partner, the love of my life, my best friend about this, they might think less of me. Mm-hmm. They might judge me for it, even though it had nothing to do with me.
Right.
There's those lines from the John Mayer song "Daughters." I've done all I can to stand on her steps with my heart in my hand, but then I realize it's got nothing to do with me. I think that's very powerful. Mm-hmm. Every time I listen to that song, I get, I don't know, goosebumps or a tear to my eye maybe. We have 4 daughters together, and they all have their own individual trauma. You have yours. I'm sure my mom had hers. She didn't really talk about it, and my sisters as well. So whenever I hear that song, I'm learning to play it on the guitar as well. So it's tough to get through that entire song without, getting a lump in my throat.
We weren't allowed to talk about our trauma growing up. We weren't allowed. That was swept under the carpet. Shh, don't talk about it. And that's not healthy. And I want to say that when you feel isolated because of your trauma and you're unable to talk about it with your significant other, counseling is healthy. Going where you could talk about it so you can work through it, unpack it, and then pack it up again. It will always be with you. Your trauma doesn't leave you, and they come up at the weirdest times. Like, you'll be triggered by something. You're like, why am I feeling this right now? And you're like, oh, there might be a sight, a smell, a sound that triggers you, and you just have to recognize your body. You have to take a PhD in yourself, and that's what I teach in my trauma classes is you have to understand how you respond so that you know if it's you being triggered or not. So you know how to pause and breathe and take a moment and go, okay, this is what's happening right now. And how you move from that moment forward, you can do it in a way that's less reactionary, less emotional, and more, this is my stuff right now. This is me right now. And there's nothing bad happening. The environment looks good. There's good things happening right now. Or this triggered me, and I'm just going to take a deep breath, and I'm not going to react to it. I'm in a safe place. Because oftentimes it's something in your senses that cause a trigger, and you don't even know what it is. It could be the way someone speaks to you. Actually happened to us. We were at the movie theater. Oh gosh, this was probably 12 years ago. We were at the movie theater, and there was a couple standing in front of me, and you and Mom went to find our seats in the theater itself, and then you came back, and I, in the midst of you being gone, the couple in front of me was talking about getting popcorn or not getting popcorn. And of course, me being the very communicative person that I am, that talks to everybody in the grocery store and everywhere I go, that's just how I am. I'm like, oh yeah, my husband went and got our seats, and I'm gonna stand in line and get popcorn. And the gentleman who was standing in front of me with his wife turned around to me and he goes, we were not even talking to you. Do you mind? Very sternly. I froze. The way he hovered over me and spoke down to me, and the cut in his words and the way he talked to me was so rude. And I don't do well with rude people. I don't do well with people that are mean to other human beings. I just don't. I've seen abuse. I've seen growing up. I love my mother, but she was in a relationship where I saw the abuse. I saw her get abused for years. And so when a man speaks to another individual harshly and in a way that is hovering over somebody, it triggered me. And so when you came back, hey, we got our spots. I mean, you were like, what's wrong? You knew right away there was something wrong with me. And I'm like, that guy right in front of me was really mean. And he's like, well, how was he mean? And I'm like, I couldn't even explain it. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and then he gave me a look, and I was ready to take him out. I was ready to put some severe injury on the guy.
Yeah, he was just, and the way he was talking to, well, then I started, I got really quiet and I started listening, and he was talking to his own wife that way, and I thought, oh, and then I felt sorry for her. And I don't know if sorry, I empathized with her, because then I thought, oh my gosh, he probably talks that way to her all the time, like that. And that would last 2 minutes in my book and we'd be divorced. Like, I just wouldn't tolerate that at all. It felt very controlling and very disrespectful on the level of most likely he's an abusive person. He just felt abusive. I can feel abusive people because of my experience. And I don't tolerate verbal abuse, and I don't tolerate physical abuse or sexual abuse or any of those things. I talked to my kids when they were growing up about abuse and about my trauma. Thankfully, that helped them feel comfortable enough for me when there was a situation with our child around a boy being, pushing himself on my daughter sexually. She came right to us and was able to get some help. And I'm thankful for that she was feeling safe enough she could talk to us. When I was abused, I did not feel safe enough to talk to anybody. I didn't tell anybody.
Because the parents didn't want to hear it.
Because I didn't feel like I thought it was my fault. And I just held on to those memories, and that, how could I have done it differently? Could I have put myself in a different place? Why did that happen? Those types of things. And when I look back on it, I think, we need to create those safe spaces for girls, and we need to be having the conversation of what our boundaries should be. No one really taught me about those boundaries. In fact, the people that were allowed to be at our house when I was with my mom and her husband at the time, they were not good people. And so there were unacceptable things that happened on a daily basis, especially when the parties were going on, and lots of drugs, lots of alcohol, those types of things. Addiction was very prevalent. So in thinking about that, we had to have those conversations, you and I, to have a healthy sexual relationship, a healthy partnership, if you will, so you could understand the world in which I come from. And also, I don't use it as an excuse. I use it as when you can recognize me, fight, flight, or freeze, you know that I've been triggered in some way.
We also talked about the expectations for our children. They weren't babies. I think Casey and Janetta were the youngest at 14, 15.
No, it was 20 years ago, so 12.
Well, okay, 2005. Casey and Jeanette are both born in 91. So they were 14.
14. Okay.
But we did have an expectation that when they were over the age of 18, if you're going to be living under this roof, a couple things have to be happening. Either you have a job, or you're going to school, or maybe even both. Those were the expectations. You can't just sit at home
And we didn't pay for their cell phones.
Right.
We didn't pay for the gas in their car. We did buy our children cars, pretty cheap cars, not brand new. But when they would make these educational goals and they met them, for example, graduating or whatever, or getting married, we gave Emily a car for being married. But we didn't give them the gas to put in that car.
Right.
We didn't give them the money to save to move on to their goals of moving out or having their own place. They did that. And you have to allow your children to struggle for them to be successful, because it is very clear that adults, parents, are not allowing their children to have a little bit of a stress, a struggle, so that they could be successful out on their own. And I think that came with, we don't buy your phones, you need to get a job. I never just gave my children money to go to concerts. I didn't give them money to just go wherever. Now, if we went and I invited them, I might buy them something, a ticket to get into it. Like we went to the Eagles concert and we did that. But, if they wanted to go with friends, they had to be able to pay for it. They had to be able to pay their way. And I think that helped them be stronger. All of our kids, all 5 of them, live independently. Two are married, been married for almost as long as we have. Like they've been with their partners for a very long time. We have a daughter in Indiana who's doing amazing. And a daughter in Texas who's doing amazing, and a son in Texas who's they're all living, independently and taking care of their own bills and taking care of their own things. We don't pay for any of it.
wiping their own butts.
And there's a sense of pride there, because I see parents, and I have experienced parents say, I bought my child a phone. I have all their phones on our account. Our account's like $300 a month. And I'm like, why? Your kids are 21 and over. You should not be paying for anything for your kids at 21. They should be doing that on their own. There needs to be a stress, something that pushes them, that ignites a spark in them to go towards a goal.
Leave the nest.
Yes. The goal is not that we coddle them until they're 29. There is missed opportunities.
Because they will not still be adults. Even though they're 29 years old, chronologically they're adults. Mentally, they will not be adults.
Right. You have to create that little bit of stress, that little bit of no, you don't have a phone, but you can get a job and get a phone. No, you don't have a car, but you can get a job. I'll drive you to your work. I'll give you a ride, but you will need to save and buy a car. You have to add that little bit of stress. If you, that's how we learn. We learn in that zone of optimal awareness in our brain where we're learning. If we have created so many bumpers that we don't allow children to learn, they stay in that lane of being at home.
Bubble wrap.
Yeah. And you want to take the bumpers off. And I've got to say, I started doing that before the girls were 18. I started peeling away the bumper wrap around, or the bumper pads, or, 16, 17, because they had vehicles and they drove themselves to school and they had to get a job to put gas in the car. And I always said, as long as you're working or going to school, you're welcome to live in my home. If you're not working and going to school, then we need to have that conversation. So when they signed up to be in school after the age of 18, they could stay. And that's what some did. And some just moved out right at 18. They were gone. They moved out with 3 other friends and off they went. And is it perfect? No, but they have to stumble. They have to stumble and stub their toes and make mistakes and figure it out.
And build some calluses.
Yeah, that's how you make it in this world that is so-called broken. You make it by succeeding as an adult and being someone in society that it can manage and not live off the system. And that's our belief, 100%. You can lean onto the system, but you don't live off the system. And to me, those are generational chains that I broke when my kids were very little. I was very particular on how I wanted them to move forward. And I feel like I feel very proud. I feel like we can both sit here very proud parents of our children.
We had the goal, I think we talked about this, I'm not sure if we talked about it on this podcast, but we had the goal of getting all our kids past the age of 18 without becoming addicted or incarcerated or pregnant. And we did that. Then we made it past 21.
Yeah, we did.
With those goals in mind.
Yep. And now we have my goal is always to support the relationship, but not be in the relationship of my children's relationships with their significant others.
Right.
I'm here to buffer and support them, but I'm not here to fix it. I'm not here to be in the middle of it. It's not my business.
Right. No hovering.
I don't hover. I'm here if you need me. I often say when they call me to talk to me, I say, I need to know my role right now. Do you need me to give advice? Do you need me to fix it? Or do you need me to just listen? Those 3 things. And so oftentimes they're like, I just need you to listen. I'm like, great, I can just listen. And then sometimes they'll go, are you there? I'm like, yeah, I'm just listening.
Yep.
They're not used to me being quiet, So yeah, I think that this list is something we'll use to continue pull forward in our topics. I would really like to get further into some of these things, but I think we hit a heavy topic today. I think there's a lot of trauma spoken about, and this can be heavy or triggering for some. And there is help out there. You're not alone. We're not doctors. We're not counselors. We're not people that can fix anything. We're just here to tell you you're not alone and that it's okay to reach out. You never have to feel isolated. And in a healthy marriage and a healthy relationship, you want to strive to communicate. You want to strive to talk about these things so you can feel better. I'm so thankful I have a husband that is, again, brings the calm in our relationship, and we can have these conversations. I don't know that all men can do that. That can sit and talk about it. But I think we need to venture to ask. We need to venture to ask our partner, hey, I don't need you to fix anything. I don't need you to share any advice. I just need us to be on the same page. So I just need you to listen for a minute. We need to be able to ask that of our partners.
I had to develop that skill. My instinct is to help you fix it, to provide a solution. Let me tell you what I think. And I had to develop the skill of being able to listen and being an active listener, but passive as far as offering solutions. And I'll say, well, do you want me to you want to hear what I think, or do you just want me to shut up and listen? I will at least put that out there, so I will know more, have a more defined role in the conversation.
Yeah. And I think having that conversation is super important.
Yeah.
Talking about how we listen to each other, talking about the role we play in the conversation at times is super important. So maybe it begins there. maybe it begins there for our newer couples to say,
Have the talk about the talk.
have the talk about, the communicating and what that's going to look like for us as a team. Because you have to face the world in the marriage as a team, a united front, a united. I still say when people ask me to do things or go somewhere, I say, let me check with my husband. Let me see if he has any plans. I think that's very respectful. It's kind. And you do the same.
Because neither one of us are in charge. Neither one of us are the boss. This is something it's an equal partnership that we respect each other's opinion and each other's time enough that it's very rare that we schedule anything without consulting the other person or make a big purchase without consulting the other person.
Mm-hmm.
A dog chewed up one of my earbuds. So I would like to replace my earbuds. Is that okay?
We'll have to look at the budget, honey.
We'll have another budget conversation.
And with that being said, thank you for joining us today. We're hoping that you share this with others and share this with new couples or couples that are out there that need that support. And we're just going to continue having the conversation at our Sunday morning table.
Yep, and we are not psychiatrists.
No.
Now, we are professionals. You have to look at it that way. I'm a professional geologist.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm a professional educator.
Right, but we've been working on ourselves, our emotional maturity and our emotional evolution, so we can speak with some authority on what we've done with ourselves physically and mentally.
Yeah.
So reach out to us, and you know where to find us.
Leave a comment.
Leave a comment.
Yeah, leave a comment. Let us know how we're doing, and if you want more, and if there's anything specific you want to hear how we handle situations, we'll definitely take questions in the comment area, and we'll bring them forward in the next podcast. But other than that, hey, honey, have a great week.
Love you, sweetie.
I love you, honey. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.